Hello and welcome to the Motivational Midwife. My name is Lynn Jones and I've just put together a short video with some interview thoughts and tips and things that you might need to consider if you are currently applying for a job. So I thought I'd put together just a very quick video around sort of interviews and some of my thoughts on things to potentially consider. I'm now in a different job. I've retired from Peterborough completely and I'm now working as a clinical educator in King's Lynn. And certainly I know a lot of our students are very anxious about the current climate for jobs within maternity and impending interviews. So it's something I just thought if I put a little presentation together on some of my thoughts of things you might want to consider when applying and preparing for interviews. So firstly, starting obviously about applying, so some of the things that you might need to think about or is worth thinking about when you're applying for a job is actually read carefully the application and what it's asking for. Different trusts will have different formats for actually applying for their jobs. So some of them might be a series of questions that you have to answer relating to the job and the job description. Some might be a more fluid, write 500 words on how you fulfill the job description. Read the job description very carefully. Make notes to yourself for each point of that job description and how you think you actually fulfill those desired and essential criteria in that job description. Make sure that your answers are actually relevant. Don't just spew out all your exam results because you've passed the course. You are a midwife, so they don't need to know that you did this, that, whatever. The NMC don't need to know whether you got 70% or 100%. You've passed the course, and therefore you've got your PIN. So when you are providing sort of answers to various questions, the supporting evidence and the relevancy of your answers. So it might be something around communication, and you might say something along the lines of, you have a high standard of communication, and this has been supported by feedback from your supervisors in placement and also the families you've worked with. You don't necessarily need to provide that evidence, but you are it's worth taking some bits along for actual interview in case they're asked for, or you want to provide some nice evidence to support bits that you're saying. But actually it's those sort of things, if you're making a point, if you've got some evidence to back it up, that's grand. Investigate the trust that you are applying to. And this stride's relevant for the application, but also on the next slide for the actual interview preparation. So you want to know a little bit about that trust before you go to it. If you've trained at a trust, then obviously you will have some information, but you may not have all the information that would be useful. So you might not have the information around normal birth rates, cesarean section rates, induction rates, preceptorship programs. What do they offer? Have they got a birth unit? What's the percentage of women going through their birth unit? What sort of other specialities or things does that trust actually offer that would want you to go and work there? You want to go and work there, but equally, why should they want you to work there? So I think investigating a little bit about the trust you're applying to shows that you are interested in that trust, and that you have bothered to actually find out a little bit about what they do. Ask for a visit to the unit. I'm actually meeting somebody tomorrow to show them around the unit, a student from a different trust who wants to have a look around the unit. And that's never a bad thing. You know, it's quite nice to go and look at a unit that you actually want to apply to, particularly if you haven't trained at it, and, you know, be able to have a chat with maybe some of the band fives. How have they found their preceptorship? Chat to people. How do they find working at the unit? How does it feel to you? Does it feel like a nice place to work? It also actually makes it less stressful if you've visited the unit, you know where you're going for your interview day. It's quite nice to do that sort of recce first and find out where you're going. Think about some of the things that you have done, your emergencies, your newborn life support, drugs, because all of these things may come into your interview. So different trusts, again, do different interview techniques. Some will have a small panel of people, 2 or 3 people, and they will ask you a series of questions. Some will have a series of mini stations, so like speed dating, and you will work your way around these stations. Generally, you only get about 5 to 10 minutes at each station, so they do need to be quite sort of snappy, succinct answers that you're giving on these stations. But within those stations, and equally within the questions that you're asked, you might get questions on an emergency, an obstetric emergency. You might get a question on newborn life support, or have to demonstrate newborn life support. You might get questions around safeguarding or mental health. So all things to look at, the processes and escalation for various things as well, to have that sort of in your back pocket. Who would you escalate things to? What would you escalate? Those sorts of things. In terms of drugs, you know, make sure that you are very au fait with the most common drugs used within maternity. You may get a question or a station where there might be some drug calculations to do. You might get a scenario in which you might have to, you know, talk through administering some drugs. It may be that there is an error on the drug chart, and hopefully you will spot that error, which might be around potentially overdosing someone, particularly with common drugs like paracetamol, because you haven't checked the drug chart or the electronic system properly. Just be mindful of some of those sort of things that you might get asked to interview. Make sure that you've had enough sleep and rest before your actual interview. Cramming to the 11th hour, exactly the same as when you are sitting for exams and things. You really do need the sleep and the rest to be in the best possible condition to do your interview. Have some scenarios and stories to hand, because very often within interviews you will get asked, in fact, when I was interviewed recently for the post I now have, I was asked, give us an example of how you've supported somebody or advocated for somebody. There are lots of things that you might get. So whether you've give us an example of when you've perhaps challenged a situation, been an advocate, had a difficult situation where you've perhaps had a poor outcome. How did you deal with it? Things like that. They have a variety of scenarios or stories that you can pull out of your hat, depending on what they've done. And they very often do relate to the 6 Cs or the individual trusts' particular themes, so compassion and caring and teamwork and things like that. So you might be asked, tell us an example when you felt you had particularly good teamwork, or you led a good team, or there's lots of things you can think of, but just pull a few so that you don't have to sit and panic about thinking about them. You'll be able to pull them to the forefront of your brain fairly quickly if you're asked about those. Make sure you know where you're going. So for the interview day, be well presented. Believe me, as I said, everything in the journey is scored. So your application form gets scored, your actual interview day gets scored, how you look actually gets scored. If you turn up with jeans and a t-shirt on, it doesn't look very professional. And you'd be surprised at how many people do turn up inappropriately dressed for an interview. Even to become a student midwife, you'd be surprised at how inappropriately some people dress to come for those interviews. So make sure you're well presented. Make sure you've got a drink with you. Take it slow, okay? Do take it slow. Don't, think about your answers before you are answering the question. Don't just regurgitate your exam results and say, oh, I got 100% in my emergencies, or to say, yes, that's very good. And if that's relevant to a question they've asked you, that's fine, but don't just sit there and say, well, I've done this and I've done that and I've done the next thing within your training, because everybody will have done those things within their training. If you've done stuff outside of your training, so you may have done some extra study, or you might have done a hypnobirthing course or a biomechanics course, or you may have gone to a bereavement group, or you may have gone to some antenatal classes, or you may have gone to spend some time with a smoking cessation midwife, things that just show that you've expanded a little bit outside of what you were actually expected to do for your training. Those sorts of things are very good to also put on your application form, but put within your interview as well. If you've got a particular area of interest, and you can kind of weave it into one of the questions you've been asked. So you might say, I have a particular interest in bereavement, and I hear you have a very good bereavement service here at this trust. So you're showing that you've looked into the trust within your actual interview session, but you're also highlighting an area of interest to yourself. And you might say, I spent some time with the bereavement team when I was training, blah, blah, blah. Okay, be on time, be punctual. I'm obsessionally on time, and I tend to be there like ridiculously early for anything I have. Evidence, as I say, similar to the first slide, if you've got some supporting evidence for a particular thing, bring it with you. Certificates of attendance at various different courses, you might want to take those with you just in case they're asked for, or you can refer to them. And also have some questions ready, because most panels will always ask you at the end, have you got any questions? So do have questions. Do have questions ready, and it might be about the preceptorship package. It might be about what level of support will you get as a band 5 at that particular trust. Think of some questions that are relevant. And so I think that's about all on my thoughts. There's lots of things I could go into, but they will be different for each trust. So it really is a case of trying to, get the heads up on the trust you're applying to, what they offer. If you're lucky enough to know people that work there, see if you can investigate, so you kind of have a bit of a heads up of what type of interview process they use, because that will help you prepare better. But most of all, good luck. And so there you have it, just a few of my thoughts around interviews and how to prepare for them. I hope you find it helpful, and good luck going forward in your maternity and midwifery careers.